This is Ed Morrissey from Hot Air, and we're interviewing Pete Hegseth, who just got back from Afghanistan a couple of weeks ago and is now off of active duty and looking at his future here in the state of Minnesota. Pete, first off, thanks for your service. Now, I've known you for several years.
Yeah.
You've been, how many tours have you done overseas?
Well, 3 overseas tours, Guantanamo, Iraq, and then most recently Afghanistan.
And so, you're putting that part of your life behind you, and you're looking for relapse, and you're looking for another way to serve your country, which I think is admirable. And I know that the readers at Hot Air are going to think the same thing, especially when they hear what exactly those plans might be. Pete, what is it that you're looking to do next?
Well, on Wednesday, we're going to formally announce, or I'm going to formally announce a run for the United States Senate against Amy Klobuchar.
Against Amy Klobuchar, the first-term Democratic senator from Minnesota. Now, you know and I know it's going to be tough to run against Amy Klobuchar. She's, we were talking about this earlier. She's actually she's kind of nice. I mean, people like Amy Klobuchar. She's a nice person, and so how do you run against Amy Klobuchar?
I think the first thing you do is remind people how she actually votes. That oftentimes she'll say one thing or speak in a certain way that's very appealing. Go to Washington, vote differently than that, and then hope people aren't paying attention and aren't following all that closely. And I think so. The first task is to remind folks how she's actually voting. That hey, on Obamacare, on the stimulus, on TARP, on voting 6 times to increase the debt ceiling. She's voted that way every single time. I think when you remind Minnesotans that she's on the tough votes, she's voted with Senator Obama 92% of the time, and Franken 93% of the time. Not that much different, but you just feel like you get a different impression. So our first job is to really go to that voting record. So,
and going to the voting record, and she's going to be running on the same ticket as Barack Obama. This is Minnesota. I mean, this is not Utah, it's not Wyoming, it's not Texas.
Sure.
It's Minnesota. Minnesotans tend to vote more middle of the road to center left in national elections. So this time around, with Barack Obama at the top of the ticket, and the last time around Barack Obama was at the top of the ticket and he helped carry Al Franken barely to victory. Do you see Barack Obama in this election being more of a problem for Amy Klobuchar this time around?
I don't know the answer. There's a lot of time to come before it happens. So I think there's a lot that could change either way. I think also what we need to look at is these are times of incredible consequences. There's a lot of big important things happening in our country.
Right.
And we need representation that's willing to roll their sleeves up and get dirty on those tough issues.
Right.
And oftentimes with Senator Klobuchar, you've got her taking on easy issues, sort of 99%, we all agree on them issues, let's have a press conference and agree on those issues.
Yes.
As opposed to saying, all right, we're about to increase the debt ceiling, let's have a hard, difficult conversation about what that means and what the ramifications of that are, of piling another $1 trillion on the backs of our children. So I think it's our ability to frame and understand the issues and then provide a proactive alternative. Regardless of what, Obama's going to be at the top of the ticket, he's going to have $1 trillion or whatever he's going to have at the top of the ticket that'll be tough to push back on. But we're going to have to carry forth a positive message as to why we've got a better alternative.
So let's go over just a few of the issues very quickly, because I know we've only got a few minutes here before we've got to send you back home to your family, because your family has been very patiently and very supportive.
My wife is a patron saint. When you've got 10 months in Afghanistan, you come home, you take 2-week breather, and then you say, I'm going to do another deployment in Minnesota as I run for the United States Senate seat. That's a tough one, but she's wonderful.
And you have a 20-month-old
20-month-old son and another one coming in August.
So that's congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Let's go over some of the issues. Taxes. Where are you at on taxes?
Reform and simplify. I mean, I think right now we've got an overly complex tax code that the only people that understand the tax code are the regulators and the folks doing your taxes or elsewhere. And the people that can take advantage of that tax code are those that can pay the lawyers to take advantage of it. So let's simplify that code, reform the system altogether, and make it more user-friendly.
entitlement programs. This is a big issue because this is you were just talking about the debt. The entitlement programs are the biggest driver of the debt.
We're not going to have a chance in this race unless we run an authentic, real campaign, talking about real issues. So I'm not going to stand up there and talk about only pork barrel spending and the small stuff on the discretionary side, which is important, but we all know it's 0.5% of the actual federal budget. We're going to have an adult conversation about the drivers of our deficit, the larger entitlement programs, and it's not about scrapping them and privatizing. It's about making them solvent, reforming them, ensuring that they're fiscally sound enough to carry forward, that they're not driving our deficit going forward. So we've really got to, we owe that to the older generations now, to my son, to every generation of Americans following us. This debt is unsustainable. It's absolutely unsustainable. We're driving off a cliff. So either we make the tough choices now, or they're going to be made for us. Whether it's downgrades of our credit rating or whatever it is in the future, we have that choice now, and it has to be our generation that makes that, charges ahead on that, and we'll do that in this campaign.
So, in a related issue, Obamacare, complete repeal?
Complete repeal. Yeah. Replace it with something that's patient-centered, market-oriented, free market-oriented. There are a lot. We don't need government making those calls for us and mandating it from Washington.
Have you been following the Paul Ryan plan at all? I mean, you were a very busy man in Afghanistan.
A little bit of a busy man. I can't say I've read the entire plan. I think what he did is put forward a serious set of free market proposals and say, the fee-for-service model in Medicare is not working. There's no transparency. We're driving up costs, and we better find an alternative that makes the system solvent. We reform what exists, make sure it's there for future generations. We're not talking about scrapping things or removing things or leaving people out of the system. We're solving it and making it solvent, and I think he proposes interesting solutions to it.
Defense cuts. The Obama budget's come out. They're talking about. I was just in Washington. I was talking to a couple of members of Congress about this. There's the $400 billion that the Pentagon had over a 10-year period had already lopped off the top, and now they're talking about the Obama administration wants another $400 billion on top of that in exchange, apparently, for the sequestration. Or actually, we're not even really sure exactly where the sequestration works out in, but we're looking at perhaps over $1 trillion in cuts to the Pentagon over the next 10 years. Is that really sustainable with the current U.S. mission as it stands?
Well, I don't think so. Across the board, blanket cuts are not the way to go. I mean, you know I'm a defense guy. You know I believe in a strong America and our role in the world and doing things the right way. At the same time, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't look at areas within the defense budget that need to be cut.
Right.
It isn't a sacred cow. There are places, if you look at how we procure our weapon systems, for example.
Yeah. Yes.
Years and billions of from a system that was built in the 1950s. I think it takes someone who's been there, seen it, Iraq, Afghanistan. You see how our military works. It's a bureaucracy at the end of the day. The military is.
Right.
And there are places where that can be trimmed and cut. But we should be looking at overruns in costs of weapon systems, not trimming the 82nd Airborne, because the world's still a dangerous place, and if not for America, then who?
But this brings me to a related point then, because one of the things that has been discussed, and we see this in the presidential election, has been what is the nature of the American mission globally? You hear different things from different people. Actually, you hear one thing from Ron Paul and something from everybody else. I know I can make Pete laugh.
Very true.
How do you see the American mission? Is there room for the American mission to readjust globally so that we're using our resources more efficiently while still maintaining the same level of security for the free world?
Well, the unfortunate reality, as you know, is much of the rest of the world, Western world, has checked out.
Right.
Europe is piggybacking on our defense infrastructure. They don't have the ability to project power or defend interest around the world. So if we check out, then freedom and democracy in many ways around the world checks out. America really is the best, last best hope on earth for the things that we believe in. Right. So I don't think we can afford to. The world is a freer and better place with America in the lead. We can't afford to cede our sovereignty. We cannot afford to cede our sovereignty to international organizations that don't have our interest in mind. For international criminal courts, different. So it's not as if there's another entity that I feel comfortable handing our interests over to. And then I think we make a mistake when we think history is over. There are other. I mean, it's not over.
Right.
There are bad
Francis Fukuyama's
absolutely
famous.
It is not over. And I think it's good that we're orienting toward the Pacific and understanding that China has interests and they're building aircraft carriers and they want to expand their orbit. It's important that we do that, but we got to be smart about where we put our assets. They're not unlimited. We're having struggles here at home. People our economy. We can't just afford to carte blanche send our military wherever we want to send it. So we've got to be smart about it. But I also don't think we could cede our role in the world. We're the last best hope.
One final question. What do you think is going to be the biggest issue for Minnesotans in the coming election?
The biggest issue for Minnesotans, I think, for me, it's jobs in the economy, and it's understanding that politicians do not create jobs. They just don't. They'll tell you, they'll look you in the eye and say, I created X number, or I'm going to create X number of jobs. No. Politicians create an environment in which Minnesotans, small business owners, take the risks to start new businesses or expand existing businesses and create more jobs. And you do that by simplifying the tax code, lessening bureaucracy and the burden we put on small businesses, and providing a little bit of predictability. If you're a small business owner right now, you have no idea what's about to come your way. So do you want to hire more people? I don't know. And I've talked to a lot of business owners who just aren't sure whether they should step out.
Right.
So it's understanding that we have to create, if I want to be an elected official in Washington, it's not my job to create jobs, it's my job to ensure that the job creators are able to do it.
Pete, where can people find more about your campaign?
PeteForSenate.com, and it's a shell page right now where they can sign up or donate, but in the future, because we're still in some ways I'm still unpacking my duffel bags from Afghanistan.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
2 weeks. However, it'll be up full and running very soon, but PeteForSenate.com is where folks can check us out.
I moved from California 14 years ago. I'm still unpacking boxes. This is Pete for Senate, that's FOR, right?
Yep.
PeteForSenate.com. Pete Hegseth, running for Senate in Minnesota. Be sure to check that out.